Hi, everyone. Happy Monday and welcome to Built in Texas. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. We had an incredible one. I'm still recovering. I actually had a little Uber snafu this morning too, so I'll tell you about that later. But my name is Jasmine Brandt, and I am the host of Built in Texas, and we are a weekly show that introduces you to some of the incredible women that are just doing really awesome stuff, whether it's ideas, innovation, or moving the state forward. And the women are based here in Texas, and we've had some that are outside of Texas, because as we've seen, Texas women are everywhere, and our influence and impact can be felt everywhere as well. So every Monday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, for about 30 to 40 minutes, we give you a bite-sized introduction to women that are here doing some awesome stuff. And we've got two incredible women that'll be joining us this morning. And they are helping us in the state, the month with a big bang. So before I bring them on, I want to tell you a little bit about Her Texas, which is the organization that powers Built in Texas, and also tell you about some of the fun stuff we just did this past weekend. It's probably why I need a couple more cups of coffee. Because we actually had an incredible time, just an amazing time. We did our first ever road trip. But my name is Jasmine Brandt. I'm an entrepreneur based in Dallas, Texas, and I've started several successful ventures here and several not so successful ventures here. But one of the things that's been consistent is that I just believe that Texas has so many opportunities for women. And I believe a lot of that comes from the sisterhood that exists here. And it's been the constant for me, whether I've had really great success or I've had challenges. It's always been the sisterhood of women that have been there to support me and have my back. So I want to tell you a little bit about Her Texas. Also, if you're tuning in, because we broadcast this live from Facebook or LinkedIn, feel free to let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I would say 98% of our viewership is from Texas, but we do also have amazing men and women that tune in. And we do have a couple of really cool guys that actually tune in, you all. I told a guy friend of mine, I was like, we have a couple. We're growing, though. We've got some really cool male allies. So I want to tell you a little bit about Her Texas before I bring on our incredible women. So this is a photo from this past weekend. And as I was telling you guys, the reason why I'm dragging a little bit, we had our first event, Her Texas did, and it was a road trip. And it is an event concept that we hope to roll out around the state. And it was a short but impactful 2 days of just supporting women-owned businesses, connecting with women. And we had women from around the state tune in and join us for the weekend. We kicked off with a networking meetup with a group of women at SheSpace, which you'll learn a little bit more about. But I said this in my social post, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but I have officed at so many co-working spaces in the state over the last couple of years. And I am going to go on the record and say I do believe that SheSpace is one of the chicest. It might be the chicest, because I've seen a lot of them. I've officed at them and hosted events. But we'll be sharing a recap of all the fun stuff that happened this weekend on our social channels this week. We'll also be tagging all the women-owned businesses that we supported. And the idea of the concept of the road trip is that exactly. We want to activate women's empowerment. We want to visit, hopefully eventually make our way around the state. And for a couple of days, we want to come in and shine a light on the women in that city, the awesome stuff that's happening, as well as directly support women-owned businesses. I had someone ask me, is Her Texas and what we're doing a social networking event? I'd say, of course, there's always going to be some social connection in there. But a big part of what we're trying to do is make an impact financially as well. We know that it's just hard to run a business here anywhere you're located. So we really want to make sure that the women of Texas, regardless of where you are, if you're in a big city or small city, like a lot of the ladies that tune in every week, that you have a sisterhood that has your back, and that you're not alone. Here's another one of the fun pictures. We have so many fun photos that we'll be sharing. We attempted to do a mural tour, you all, yesterday at about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, which was probably not the best idea, because it was about 3 o'clock. I mean, it was about 100 degrees around 3 o'clock. And so we made it we actually didn't do too bad. We made it to about 4 or 5 murals. And then we kind of had to call it quits, because I think yesterday was the hottest day in Houston that they've had, or it hit 100. I think the temperature index was was 108, but lots of fun. As I share with you, Built in Texas, we come to you every Monday at 11 a.m. Last week, we had an incredible conversation with these two women, Shireen Abdullah, who has a startup called Yumlish. She is looking to provide a platform to rid of the disparities when it comes to health for minorities. And then Karen Bain, she is actually the president of SA 2020. She's the former chief of equity officer for the city of San Antonio, an awesome nonprofit doing really amazing stuff to help nonprofit leaders. If you didn't get to see that episode, or you want to see the previous episodes, because we've been doing shows since March, you can go to our website and they're all there. We also we send out a replay of this every Wednesday. So if you tune in a little bit and you have to hop off for work, or you come in late, don't worry. We send out every episode every Wednesday, and you can also always see a link to it on our social channels as well. So a little bit about Her Texas, because I'm sure if you've not tuned into Built in Texas, you may not know the work we're doing. As I shared, I'm an entrepreneur for the last 10 or 11 years. And back in 2019, and actually a little bit before that, I started to really discover that it wasn't just me who was having challenges when it came to connectivity. Also, as a leader, it can feel very lonely. And I realized I was not the only woman that was experiencing these things. In Dallas, I was meeting women around the state and started to see we had a lot of the same challenges and needed a lot of the same support. And I also discovered at the time that Texas women just needed not only a lot more connectivity, but just a lot more care. And I think it required a new table being built. And that's kind of what we've been doing. And so we were created to address the connectivity challenges faced by women that live, work, and do business here. So Texas is big. And I share with the ladies, because a lot of people don't know that women are over 14 million here in the state. We're 50.6% of the population, which is a huge opportunity, but a huge challenge when it comes to connection. And so we believe that greater collaboration, communication, and community are needed now more than ever for working women. And I think it's more about us working together, not just in our cities, but actually outside of our cities as well. So here's what we do. We like to increase the awareness of the women that live, work, and do business here. We do statewide networking opportunities, and that's kind of what we did this past weekend, where we brought the women from around the state to Houston. We are, of course, on a mission to support and help female founders grow. Eventually, we'd love to be a partner for employers who are looking to connect with incredible Texas women. And then we just want to help you navigate the state, because if you just moved here, it can be overwhelming. And even if you lived here for a long time, what I've discovered in my research over the last couple of years is that even women that have been here or born here still haven't really explored their cities or even other cities in the state. So we hope to make that a lot easier for you. So how can you get involved and support? As a lot of small business owners, a lot of startups, our goal was to launch last year, but we, of course, stopped and started and had so many challenges. So now we're finally, as things are starting to move along, we're starting to finally kind of get the wind in our steps. So you can subscribe to our newsletter. You can also select a social media channel to follow. You can shoot us an email. If you want information, just more about what we're doing, we've got a media kit we can send you. If you're looking to partner, sponsor, or have feedback or ideas, you can connect directly with me. And then stay tuned for another meetup. We are already planning our next road trip. I will tell you, it's going to be either Austin or Fort Worth. So stay tuned. I've already had lots of conversations, even in this weekend while I was in Houston. So pretty exciting stuff. So stay tuned for the next city meetup. And then we'll also actually be doing a local meetup, and I say local, in Dallas, where we're actually headquartered. So stay tuned for that. Finally, we actually will be participating next week at Dallas Startup Week. There's a block of time for Her Texas on Monday at 11 a.m. This is in person, y'all, too. It's at SMU. This is the cool thing about this year's Dallas Startup Week, is that it is both in person and it's virtual. I think it's a byproduct of us in our new hybrid world. So what I'm going to do is invite, of course, all the women in our community around the state to tune in. This is going to be a great time for you to learn more about Her Texas. I, of course, always have a little surprise up my sleeve. So whether you're in person or tuning in virtual, we have a little surprise for you. So would love for you to join us, support us. And if you're just wondering what Her Texas is and what's Jasmine been rambling about, we'd love for you to stop by if you're in town or if you pull up on your computer too and log in. And finally, how to stay connected with us. As I've shared with you all every week, we're still not on TikTok. We have an account though. We have made some progress. So we do have an account, but I have not crossed that over to that side yet. So, but we've got lots of ways to connect with us. Of course, all the social channels. We have a really great private Facebook group too. So if you're looking to connect directly or looking for jobs in the state or opportunities, you can find us on Facebook, and that's a private group only for women that are currently in Texas. So that is all the information about Her Texas. As I've shared with you earlier, so I'm currently in Houston, and I had this weekend I would say perfect, which I normally do not say. And I told my mom, I said, this has been the most perfect weekend. And of course, this morning I left my phone at Starbucks. So Stephanie, that's why I'm not at your office. We'll talk about this in a little bit. I left my phone. Everything was so perfect. And I knew the minute I took a breath, I was like, this was actually a perfect weekend. And I think in the happiness of that, I left the phone. Luckily, I have two phones in overachiever mode. So I was able to call it and get it. So, but other than that, this was a fantastic weekend, you all. So I'm excited to see lots of us logging on. Feel free. This is a intimate conversation. It's for you. So I'm going to bring on our guest this morning. So I'm so excited to have them here with us as we end the month, which I can't even believe. If you can believe it, you all, we have 154 days left for this year. So I'm excited and nervous about that. Carrie and Stephanie, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you? Thank you both so much for joining us with Built in Texas. So I've got Karen. Hey, Karen, who's joining us actually from New York. Karen, as I told you, I will be there. My sister's birthday is in September. So I hope I get to connect with you. So it's so good to see you. And some love from SheSpace, which I told you earlier, I'm probably going to get killed because I said I do think it's the chicest space ever. I don't know, Kerry, have you been to SheSpace yet?
I haven't, no, but obviously I need to.
You're going to have to the next time you're in town with Houston. It is stunning. It's a stunning, incredible space, very intentional.
I'm writing it down right now.
Okay, good. Well, I'd love for you all to introduce. We have a little bit of time, so I don't like to read huge bios, but I'd love to open up the conversation with you, just sharing with our audience who you are, a little bit about the work you do, and then a very important question that we ask every week, sushi or Tex-Mex? And Kerry, I will start with you.
Okay, so I'll answer the important question first. I'm sushi. I actually love real Mexican food. I'm not super into Tex-Mex except queso, which I think is, Texas is perfect food. But I don't really love just sort of beans and tacos and stuff like that.
Okay.
But my favorite queso in Austin is Portuguese. I know the tacos aren't as great as everywhere, but the queso is awesome. So I am Kerry Rupp. I am a general partner at Tsuru Wealth Ventures. We are an Austin-based venture capital fund, and we explicitly invest in companies and in actually companies that are improving human and or environmental health. We define women-led as at least one woman of significant decision-making authority on the founding or the C-suite team. It needs to be a full-time woman who's in an operating role in the company. It just doesn't have to be the CEO. But that being said, we've chosen 13 companies so far, and in 12 of them, it's the CEO. So we are talking, a significant player on the decision-making team and an owner of the company. And so just a couple of quick things too. We invest at the seed stage, so the companies are quite early. Usually our first checks are somewhere between 500K and $1 million. We're usually like pricing the round, so it's a priced equity round. We're taking a board seat. We're pretty hands-on. So we have a pretty discrete portfolio. So Fund 1 has 12 companies, and we're just launching Fund 2, and we've got 1 company in there. We don't explicitly or exclusively invest in Texas, but we really want to. And so our first 2 companies were in Texas, one in Austin and one in Houston. And our most recent 2, which we can't announce yet, but they're the 12th company out of Fund 1 and the first company out of Fund 2. One's in Dallas and one's in Austin.
I'm dying of the Dallas one.
I know, but we signed the term sheets, but we haven't closed the deals. And so they'll be coming up soon. Anyways, we'd love to have, at least, half of our companies be in Texas. We're just not at that place yet. But we're really proactive about choosing women-led companies in Texas. So that's me.
Okay, awesome. And Stephanie, let us know a little bit about yourself in SheSpace and, of course, sushi or Tex-Mex.
Well, I live in Texas, so the answer should be obvious. However, my husband's Japanese, so I might actually have to go with sushi as well. I think the Tex-Mex thing is just because it's like too much sour cream, and like that's not really like Mexican food. But anyway, so no, we were really, really lucky to have her Texas here inside SheSpace today. And yeah, Jasmine, I was like, where is she? I was like looking for you this morning. I was starting to like, you had a little bit too much fun in Houston and like couldn't make it in this morning.
Stephanie, I wish. I actually got up and worked out and read this morning. Very boring.
I'm glad to see you. I'm like, where'd she go? No, we had a lot of fun Saturday afternoon. We had a lot of really interesting and amazing women, mostly female founders, a woman or 2 looking to become, I think like exploring the waters to be, have their own company. But you're going to have to excuse me because I am managing the front desk as well. So kind of multitasking like women do.
Totally fine. Well, can you tell us a little bit about for SheSpace? What's different about it?
Yes, I can tell you. I wish we could kind of go on a video tour because Jasmine, you were here and you saw it. I'm like, I think so you can. I'm going to tip my thing so you can see our little neon SheSpace there.
Yes.
And our little, let's see, wallpaper over here. I'm doing a little mini tour. And there's our office hall, and here is our mural. Anyway, so you can see that we're brightly colored. So we are Space. Originally, the plan was a physical space, a brick and mortar to support women-owned businesses, female founders. However, as women have discovered SheSpace, our reach has very much broadened. Our network is not just women in SheSpace, it's women all over now. So we do have offices, we do have desks, we do have co-working space, we have meeting rooms, we have event spaces. Really, it's anything and everything that women need to support themselves professionally and personally. We do a lot of educational programming. And originally it was just for professional development, skill building, classes, seminars, workshops. However, all work and no play makes us very boring. And most of us are like workaholics. And so we thought we needed to bring in some fun stuff. So we're also now doing things like flower arranging and wine tasting, just a few things added in here because there were a lot of women coming through that already had places to work. And they go, but we want to be part of the community because we really are about building the culture. And so we have started our own social group, which you mentioned, Jasmine. People said, hey, it's a social group, because really that's just a fun way of saying networking. I mean, instead of just people, I think networking, the word gets overused. And so you network by socializing. So we have built that in here as well. So I would say 50% of the women that come here have offices somewhere else, including in their home, but just no longer want to work at home all the time. They just need the connection. And you can see the bright colors. It really lends itself just to being creative and inspired. And what women say is they get more done here like in a day than 2 days at home, and I can so relate to that.
Oh, I can relate.
Dishwasher and the dog. So that is SheSpace in a nutshell.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I think we work not just with our businesses and our careers, but just in life in general. So the space is so important, which I was so excited for us to host an event.
It was really fun. It was really fun.
It was. So I'm curious for both of you, one of the things when I started working on this idea of Her Texas, just trying to bring us together in a more strategic way, I had so many people. I've had both positive affirmations and also people say, "What, Jasmine, why?" Because I think Texas, there's so many misconceptions, stereotypes of what's happening here. And one of the biggest things that I realize is that the diversity of women here, and not just ethnicity, but just industry focused and age, specifically when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's just been really fascinating to see that. And so, Kerry, I'm curious about you as well. You said earlier that you'd like to invest in more Texas female founders. What's been your challenges in doing so? Is it just finding out where they are, or is them actually meeting your requirements? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, I think it's not about the existence of women entrepreneurs. In fact, when we were fundraising, actually one of the early objections we got for Fund 1 was, well, maybe only 2% of venture capital dollars are going to women because there aren't that many women founders. And we wanted to pull our hair out. That is not the problem. Women actually start businesses at 2 times the rate of men. They're not all venture scalable businesses. Venture capital only addresses a very, very, discrete set of businesses, and it isn't the right answer for most businesses. Yes. But this, thought that maybe there aren't a lot of women-owned businesses or women-led businesses made us kind of crazy. And there are obviously a lot in Texas. It actually has some of the largest rates of women-led businesses. I think when we looked at the SBA data, and this is frankly 4 or 5 years old, San Antonio was actually the #1 place for women-led businesses in the country. And so there are plenty. Unfortunately, because of the thesis of our fund, let's start with it's venture capital. So only certain businesses are venture capital scalable and really want to take the money that requires them to get big and do the things that venture capital requires. But we are explicitly an impact fund that only looks at companies that improve human or environmental health. So the Venn diagram just gets small. And so it's not about, there aren't women in Texas that are fundable. It's just that we are, very specifically looking at these 2 goals. And that's why it's really important that there be other women led funds and funds looking at women entrepreneurs. So we have partners, at Artemis Fund in Houston that's specifically looking at women-led companies. And a lot of the other VC funds across Texas are now being a lot more proactive about looking at women because of the narrative happening. So we actually do feel like we get to see a lot of the women-led companies because for a while we were the only, first of all, for a while, Sarah and I were literally the only 2 women in venture capital in Texas. And that sounds crazy, right? I mean, it's 20 something, and it was literally me and Sarah. Now that's being very specific, not saying angel investing or family offices or private equity, but we were. And so anytime there was a living, breathing female who had a startup, they were like, "Oh, you have to meet Kerry and Sarah." They're getting frustrated to be like, "Okay, we don't do what they do. There's got to be someone else." But I think it just speaks to, there's still so much opportunity. If we look at it in a positive framing, to find, investors who will look at these women-led Texas businesses because there are dozens and dozens of them. And I think starting to be more organized and having more opportunities thanks to, organizations like Her Texas, getting people connected and getting the word out there.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And you're right. It was basically Sarah and Kerry.
And that was so frustrating for people who weren't doing, human health or environmental health. They were kind of told, "Oh, no, there's your answer." It's like, well, we can't be the answer to everybody. We've got to have other solutions too.
Totally. And I think this idea, just this education awareness of the process too. So we have so many women starting businesses, but where they're getting the information from and the connection to and just hearing about this, I think is exactly some of the mission we have. Stephanie, I'm curious about you because I know Houston, it feels like 4 cities in one. I mean, it's such a big city, and we talked about this too with our road trip. We kind of dipped our toe in the water and did just a weekend, but we're already planning to be there for a whole week because there's just so much to do and connect with. Can you talk about the business owners, the women of Houston that you connect with? Like, give us an idea of kind of the women. I know the ones that kind of come and work at SheSpace, but for those that are maybe looking to move to Houston, or they are looking to invest in Houston women or wanting to do more there, what have been your observations, the thought processes there?
I'm sorry, like I said, I'm trying to do like 3 things at once.
Oh,
Isn't that
okay.
just like, okay, no, we're good. Okay. SheSpace is huge, but oddly small at the same time. It is, or at least at SheSpace, we have women coming to SheSpace from all corners of this very large city. And I even oftentimes say, isn't there someplace closer to you? Not that I don't want you here, but isn't, like thinking of them and thinking of the time. And they're like, no, we drive by other places, you're worth coming to. But what's really exciting here is so many things, Kerry, that you touched on that I would like to comment on. So I think it's almost up to like 70% of new startups are by women right now. And out of that, it's like 67%. And out of that, over 51% are women of color. So I think that is super exciting. And that's reflected inside who we see here. So 2 things. And this is where Kerry comes in. The number one issue that they have is, where do they go with the funding? So they have this amazing idea. And I know, Kerry, this is what you see. It's not that they lack ideas, and it's not that they lack initiative or drive or determination, but they lack the capital. So, so that's where women like Kerry come in. And then we like to direct the women to where we know that they can get the funding.
Are you seeing any specific industry? So like in Kerry's sake, it's a very niche.
Yes.
Are you seeing, what kind of industries are you seeing from the women? I'm sure it's diverse all over.
Across the board, everything from consumer goods or consumer products to an oil and gas tech company. We see, which is what's really exciting though. So we call ourselves industry agnostic because it is just so much broader than we even expected. Like over the weekend, we just got 2 new women. They came in this morning working in our co-working space. And one of them is a female, she owns a remodeling company. And so that's cool. We haven't seen any women like that here. And then there are some industries that you expect to see women in more, but not here. I mean, it really is so broad and so across the board. And every day I'm surprised, which I think is really exciting, especially with a lot of young women in middle school and high school, and exposing them to what these women can do and what they can do and how they should think and dream big.
Agreed.
It's a very exciting time to be a female.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think here in Texas too, which like I said, some people I think are just unaware of the connection, the women that exist here, which is kind of our mission. Each week, I almost kind of do a little bit of matchmaking, which is my own nerdy fun I have, but we like to each week pair up women that maybe don't know each other, but have some connection point. And what's funny is sometimes I don't know what the connection point is. I usually discover it as we're talking, but there's usually something. Like I think 2 weeks ago, both of the ladies had majored in graphic design or something, which I had no idea. And I think it comes to 2 points. A, we have so many similarities and connections, but B, the importance and need of connectivity. So although Kerry's in finance on that side, and Stephanie, you're definitely working at it from the space and providing women a place to work and grow, these two worlds need to intersect more, because I think what I've noticed is that because we're so big and there's so much happening in each of our cities that we don't really kind of connect. I'd love to talk to you all both about the power of women in your own personal lives. Can you talk about, I know you both have women that you work directly with to help you kind of achieve your mission, but can you share maybe what some women that have impacted you from a professional perspective? Do you have any personal mentors? Any women's? I have lots of business women crushes. Sarah's one of mine, Kerry, and only because I think we're related, even though we look nothing alike. But there's very brands.
Right, you're both brands. Right.
I told her that once, and I'm sure I scared her. But but can you share, Kerry, like any women that have made an impact for you?
I have an interesting answer. It's less about mentoring, but I think it's really important to get out there right now, is that we're really excited. 80% of the investors in fund are women. And the reason that's so exciting is that's unprecedented in venture capital. So when we raised Fund 1, not only we were actually, this is sad and also kind of an accolade for us, but we raised almost a $20 million fund. At the time, it was the largest fund ever raised, focused explicitly on gender diversity. And that's awesome that we were the largest, but it's real sad that 20 was the largest, right? But also, 80% of our investors were women. And literally, I think it was the Wall Street Journal that told us that was literally unheard of. And of course, it's really hard to get the denominator data on, like, who are all the people investing in funds across the country, but generally they're not women. And, we think that's actually really important. You may have heard this data point, but by 2030, 2/3 of U.S. investable assets are expected to be controlled by women. And that's the hugest demographic shift in wealth that the world has ever seen. And if women aren't starting to invest as angel investors, well, I mean, they are starting to invest as angel investors. Right now, I think the numbers somewhere around 25% of angel investors are women. But in venture capital, it's about 2 to 10% of venture capitalists are women. And in terms of who's putting money into venture capital funds, it's not women. And so if all that money is shifting to women, who's going to fund the innovation economy in our country? It's going to actually affect our competitiveness. So we are really proud that we were able to take women who hadn't traditionally been exposed to or educated about venture capital and actually converted them into our fund. So 90% of the investors in our fund are in Texas, and 80% are women. And almost, a lot of them are high net worth women who had the capacity to be investors, but had literally never been to be in a venture capital fund before. Wow. People that had IPO'd their own biotech companies as the CEO were mostly their wealth manager was investing their money more traditionally, and they hadn't even been asked. And then Sarah and I realized, wow, we've never been asked to be in a venture capital fund. And we both worked in the industry previously. And so guys are sharing these deals with their buddies at, I don't know, at the golf course or something, but women aren't sharing these deals with each other and educating them about, what it takes. People didn't know what a 2 and 20 was, how venture capitalists get paid, and what a capital call was, that you don't put all the money in up front. And so those are the kind of things that inhibit you from having enough knowledge to make that decision. So we think it's really important. If we're going to move the needle on investing in more women, we think we need women investing in women VCs who are investing in women entrepreneurs. And so I'm just really proud of the, women, the Texas women, literally, who funded our first fund. And actually our Fund 2 profile looks similar so far. So we've raised 10 of the planned 30 that we're going to have in Fund 2. And it looks the same, 90% Texas, 80% women.
I can't believe that, 90% Texas. I mean, that is incredible.
It's really cool, because we literally thought for Fund 1 that we would have to, get our first close in Austin so that people understood that our local community trusted us and, wanted to go. And then we were going to go to New York and California because there's so much hype around how Austin's hot, how Texas is hot. They want to invest here. So we thought, okay, we'll go to California and Texas. But what happened was that these women in Texas who invested got really viral about it. They literally told their friends, hosted events at their houses or their clubs, and said, you need to hear about this investment opportunity. We know women can do this. Let's support the other women. So I think it speaks exactly to your point about mentors and holding women up. It's just not explicitly like the woman I turn to for advice. It's a really different model of women supporting women by literally putting their money where their mouth is. Because they expect an investment return, they believe the data, they believe that these women will be successful. But a lot of our investors also felt like, if we don't do this, who will? We've got to change the narrative here. We've got to actually do something to make it different. And that means putting our money there.
Well, and I think that whole idea of like how men are sharing these ideas, these deals, like this is something they do. And women, we inherently share, we support, we connect. Yet when it comes to that aspect, it's like that's not been happening, and it should be, because there's so many women I've met that would definitely invest and participate in some aspect if they were asked. They're just never asked. I'm curious, Stephanie, for you, in your professional development and over the course of your career, the women that have made an impact for you. Can you share a little bit about their role?
Again, so many things to talk about. I was fortunate enough to have extremely incredible women in my own family. So I actually was raised in a rural area, but my grandmother and my mother did things that in their time that were unheard of. So I had no idea that most women in the world were not like that. I mean, they took incredible risks when most women were not. And so I thought all women were like my mother and grandmother. I did not know until I got out in the world that they were very, very unusual. I did things like when I was 20, went to work in a steel mill. Actually, I was 18 the first time I worked in the steel mill. Day after I graduated from high school, went to work in a steel mill to pay my way through college. And then when I was 20, got in a little car and drove across the country. Of course, we didn't have phones or anything. I just didn't know that that wasn't normal behavior. So I have always been very willing to kind of like jump off the diving board. And when I got into the working world, so to speak, sad to say, I would say that there were very few women that were good role models for me. I think there were men that were out there, but not men that have like that implicit understanding that women have of one another.
Sure.
So I became very interested in mentoring myself, and that's kind of, so SheSpace is a way to scale mentoring. I can only mentor so many women, but so here we have our own mentoring program, and then what's happening is just it's happening just naturally, like everyone here is mentoring each other. So it's a way to scale mentoring. But I also want to go back to talk to what Kerry was talking about, and we call it money talk here. I think a lot of the reason women do not invest is they are not comfortable even like with the vernacular, like just like with the words and the talk and the conversation surrounding money. There are some, we are working on it. There's not enough. So I think it's not that they're not interested. I think they're not comfortable. And I think they are very much wanting to do this. So we are working on like literally starting at the basics. And how do you have a conversation, and what are the questions you ask? So Kerry has a very valid point. And the women that are cheerleaders for the movement of women investing are making progress, but we all need to, and I think the younger women are doing a better job of it. And I do think it will change over time. Kerry, I don't know what you think about that. Because they are more comfortable now, and they will ask the right questions. And it is a little disheartening to me when the numbers are so low, but she's right. The men ask the men. And so what we're turning it into, the women asking the women, and it will start to shift. And it's just going to take a little bit more time. And those that do invest, and those that are comfortable and already in finance, just to be, we need to speak up about it.
Yeah. I think, honestly, one of the things Sarah and I realized, I didn't ask any of my best friends from business school if they wanted to invest in my first fund. And all the guys asked their buddies from business school to invest in their fund, right? I didn't even realize I didn't do it. And so for fund 2, I explicitly said, hey, ladies, this was a mistake. I need to know that I can turn, like you can say no, but I need to ask you, and so some of it's just like cultural change. But Sarah and I are actually really interested in helping with this education effort. So we actually applied with UT Dallas to an EDA grant program. We should find out in the next couple of weeks. So I probably shouldn't be talking about it on a podcast, but our fingers are crossed because the spirit of what we're applying for is still true, to actually educate both women right now who are of high net worth, who could be investors, about the vernacular and the questions to ask, etc. But also up and coming students and women who aren't yet there in their careers where they have the capacity to invest, but that's on their radar to start thinking about, well, how do I get there? And when I get there, when will I know that I got there? And what are the things I need to ask there? So the program that we would do would be a series of education events, both, with the UT Dallas satellite campuses in, conjunction with their programs with Blackstone, Techstars Launchpad, but also for women of, high net worth capacity, helping them understand all of this. And so we do that already to some extent. We like to have group events where we talk about, what a fund looks like and, how it works, et cetera, so that women can benefit from each other's questions. For the one who is, open enough to ask the question, someone else is usually sitting there going, gosh, I wanted to ask that, but I felt like I didn't know the answer, et cetera. It's interesting because U.S. women are among the most financially literate in the world. But we rank ourselves super low in terms of financial literacy. So there's a confidence problem. And I think that's, again, another cultural dynamic that we've got to learn to shift, that knowing and wanting to understand how your money is going to get invested and how it's used is an okay thing to ask questions about and be thoughtful about. So a lot of this is just having to get out of our comfort zone and learn more.
I completely agree. It's so fascinating is that the lack of confidence is astonishing. And these are very, very well-educated women, but they just don't have confidence in it. And I think the educational program will start to shift it, not as something that this is something we can do, but something that we should be doing, is investing, because it actually is. The capital is where the capital is what allows all these female founders and their businesses to grow. And so it's another way of supporting them. In fact, it's like the most important way of supporting them. But it is shocking to me that women go, oh no, I couldn't, I can't do that because I just don't understand. But they actually do. They just think that they don't, which is what you just said, Kerry. It's like, it's just so we need to switch the mindset, right? So that, it's like switching the mindset.
You mentioned this earlier, Stephanie, too. I think to both of your points, and I'm hoping as we kind of build our statewide community of women, just you two talking about this conversation, I think these are these small steps, right? We think about the impacts we have. Even us doing a small little road trip to Houston, we visited several women-owned businesses and felt like it was social and shopping, but actually going and a woman-owned business, seeing women come there for her, it's it's huge. And both of you just talking about this conversation too, it's something like there's someone watching right now and she's very nervous about talking about these topics because she needs to as well. And I'd say too, you brought this up, Stephanie, about the prolific amount of female founders of color here in the state. I know as myself as a CEO, I had no blueprint at all. The first 5 or 6 years were a complete dumpster fire of just not knowing. And now finally, after all of these mistakes and all these lessons learned, it's now slowly starting to make sense. I didn't even talk about money the first 5 years. I mean, I just was so nervous about it. And so now you've got these women creating these incredible companies. You've got women leading incredible companies, and still there's a disconnect there. I think for a lot of female founders of color, a lot of executive women of color, because we have mentors here, but really we need next level sponsorship. Like, this is actually what this means. So I know I've brought you to this event and I've made this connection to this investor, but sponsorship is literally like, do you know what this means? Do you know what to say? Do you know what to do? I mean, the assumption is that a lot of us got a lot of this education and training and these connections. And most of the women that I've met, specifically those of color, they're starting from ground zero. The hustle drive is there, but you really literally don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So.
And the first question should be about the money. I mean, it shouldn't be the question that comes in 5 years down the road. So as you're building out your business plan, or just even like going like in the ideation phase, the first thing is the money. You've got the idea, but how's the idea going to come to life? Money. And so,
well, I'd like to ask you, Stephanie, because we're almost out of time. This goes by so fast. We have a lot of it really does. But we have so many women of at all different levels, from female founders. And also, we have quite a few women, corporate women, that tune into. I'd love to hear from you both. A leadership advice or nugget this week. Actually, this month, this year, is there a piece of advice that you could share, or a strategy that they could think about? So what's interesting, I talked to a young lady in Houston who didn't get to make it meet us to us, but she said she's like this close to quitting. And I was like, I was there 2 weeks ago. So this was part of it. But she literally is like this close to quitting. She goes, I'm so sorry I didn't get to see you all. It would have been so nice to have. And I was like, what advice should I give her? Because and it's just this thing, you just need to know you're not by yourself. So Stephanie, do you have one piece of advice, strategy, or something that could help a woman that's maybe tuned in? And I'd say a guy too, because we do have a couple of really cool guys that tune in. So one piece of advice or strategy to share?
Well, so going back to you saying, and you have corporate women that join in. Well, we have a lot of corporate women that have their meetings here. Like, they work at their offices, but they come have our meetings. So we actually love talking with them. Their perspective is different, but they love it here because it's all women. My advice is, for the person that is really struggling, is to find, if you can't find a mentor, find a support, a group of support, a network to talk things out. Because the number one thing about being an entrepreneur or solopreneur is the isolation. It's a very lonely place to be when you're trying to sort things out and figure it out. And who do you go to ask? So that's why we're really passionate about our our coaching mentoring program. And then the other thing is, don't be afraid to make mistakes. A lot of people don't like to use the word fail, but that is how you learn, is by making mistakes. And the biggest lessons learned come from errors. Like, if things always are smooth sailing, you're not going to learn anything. But it took me a long time to be okay with making a mistake. The earlier you learn that, the better off you will be. I think that's the best mistake, is like, embrace it, go with it. I even talk about it. Laugh at yourself.
I laughed this morning when I left my phone at Starbucks.
I didn't laugh at myself.
I know. Kerry, piece of advice or strategy for someone?
Sure. So I guess I have sort of two things that are similar around confidence and positioning. I mean, I think the first thing is, when companies come to people for funding, sometimes I think they are thinking that they're asking for a favor, for someone to actually help them out. But the reality is that they're offering their investment opportunity. And I want them to reframe for themselves, you have a great opportunity to make money by investing in my cool company, and you should be lucky that you're getting to talk to me about this opportunity, right? And putting that mindset into the entrepreneur's head when they're pitching, that they're literally offering an opportunity as opposed to asking for a favor. I think that shift in mindset is really, it kind of reminds me of the power pose, when you stand up, practice your big voice, and put yourself in a woman pose before you go do something. I think that positioning is really an important thing. And the other thing around positioning, I think a lot of times, and I think this is a somewhat a gendered kind of thing, women are, one of the reasons we think women-led companies outperform is that they're really good at setting achievable expectations that they can potentially over deliver. And that's pretty awesome for the plan you're going to give your board that you're 90% confident that you're going to deliver on. That is different than how big could it be, which is what you're selling when you're in a VC meeting or a sales meeting. And those are not, it is not disingenuous to have multiple cases, cases, right? I think people think, oh wait, well then I'm lying if I'm telling the big, no. What's the best case scenario if everything went great? How big could it be? Is different from what is the model I'm 100% confident or 90% confident I can deliver on. Have both of those and know when to use each one, and don't think that they aren't, consistent with one another. They're just different scenarios, with different inputs and different outputs. And I think one of the challenges where maybe, it's Kerry's theory, this isn't a data-driven study, that women-led companies don't get funded as much, is that I think men are better at that. And telling the big picture story and not feeling, nervous that it isn't the one that they're 100% sure they're going to make.
Yeah, I think that's so true. So I think to sum both of your points up, support, making sure you've got a support of of men and women. Some of my biggest allies have been men. So I think men and women, and then positioning is huge. I feel like that's a whole other conversation. It's so true. And I think guys just kind of get it, even if they don't have, even if it's not even built on anything solid, they just know how to position themselves. And it's something that we, I think definitely as women need to be better about. So my final question for you, and I want to thank both of you. I feel like this is just a part one of the conversation for sure, is how can we as a community of Texas women support what you're doing? And then we always end with, let us know your Texas spirit animal or a woman that has inspired you, a Texas woman. And it can be famous. We've had moms. Ann Richards is mine forever and ever, but I also have Beyonce too and Selena. Like, it's very diverse. But my mom, of course. But let me know, let us know a woman in Texas that has inspired you or you think's pretty badass. So Kerry, how can we as a community of women, Texas women, support what you're doing in a Texas woman that inspires you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're always wanting to see new companies that fit our thesis. And so, if you know a great women-led business, in particular that's improving human environmental health for us, we would love that introduction. So we always take a company that comes over the transom, i.e. goes to our website and submits our form, because we think we should be open to all the companies. But obviously, if it comes with a recommendation, that's just another added thing in their favor. It's funny because Ann Richards is, obviously the first person I think that comes to every woman's mind in Texas. But one of the things that we find so awesome is literally the history of strong Texas women. I think it's something about, like ranch land, et cetera, that women in Texas, I think, have a national reputation for being strong, powerful, not shrinking violets, doing, getting out there and doing things. And so I guess I really do want to go back to like the point I was making about all our investors. I think the group of women investors that took a chance on our fund one, raising a venture capital fund for the first time is a lot like having a startup. You have to go raise money from people with nothing and a story, et cetera. And so I'd like to say the Texas women who took a chance and invested in our first fund are my spirit animal.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. Stephanie, final thoughts. How can we as a community of Texas women support what you're doing? And then your favorite Texas woman that's inspired you?
We are a physical space, and so there is something in here for everyone. So even if you're not from Houston, we have something called just like a drop-in pass, a traveler's pass, so you can have a place to work for a day if you're traveling through town. But our goal is to find whatever women need and assist them. I mean, that's the thing, and every woman needs something different. So the other thing is that I'm not going to say a famous name, because I find women in here every single day that are like the unsung heroes, like the women doing like amazing things, like the women like single moms that have a day job, and then they come in here at night and work on their their dreams. So I think that it's the women that we don't know yet. I think it's the women that are just, working away, trying to figure it out, juggling 4 or 5 things at the same time. Those, I think, are the women that are my Texas spirit animal, because I think that's the most like me. I mean, that's who I relate to, and that's why I'm sitting here talking to all you amazing women.
So, I mean, these both stellar responses. And unique too. They're the first we've had of these, and I agree with you completely. It's the women doing the work that we don't always get to hear from, and that's part of our mission too, is to shine a light on that too. And I agree, Karen. I thought this was an incredible session. And if you just tuned in, because I see a lot of people have tuned in late, and you missed the first half, we will send out this episode this Wednesday to all, and we'll make sure you have all the contact information too for both ladies. So I want to thank you both for joining us this week, and as we end the month, thank you so much because I know you both. Thank you. And I'm just really excited about the opportunities we have here. And everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. We actually will be live at Dallas Startup Week next week. So excited about that. Hopefully you can tune in wherever you are in the state. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks.